director's job at Biograph in 1908 was really quite simple. Because the camera never moved, somebody had to make sure that the actors wouldn't suddenly walk out of the frame and disappear entirely from the film. Someone had to tell them to walk back into the shot. In fact, the most important person on the set was not the director, but the cameraman. In this case, Billy Bitzer.
Billy had to hand-crank the camera at a constant rate, ensuring the film didn't suddenly speed up or slow down. But D.W. Griffith was a great organiser and a great believer in himself, which helped him quickly become a prolific director. In 1908, he made 60 films. If you think that's going some, in 1909 he made over 100, most of the films being around 15 minutes long. Often the films were improvised with very little script worked out in advance. Griffith rapidly gained a reputation as a director who was good with actors. They trusted him. As the films were silent, Griffith could coach his cast through the performances he wanted. Here is Mary Pickford in the New York Hat. Griffith saw himself as a great artist, a sensitive poet. His repertory company were deeply in awe of him. A reverential hush would settle on the set whenever D.W. was ready to direct. If studios were in New York, D.W. very rarely used New York exteriors. One notable exception was The Musketeers of Pig Alley. The film was praised for its bold framing. New York gangsters on screen were pussycats in comparison to the real-life crooks who were proving to be a nightmare for many filmmakers. And that was largely down to Thomas Edison.
This is Edison's office. He asserted that the movies were his invention alone. For every single foot of film run through a camera or a projector, then you owed Edison money. In 1908, he established a cartel, or a trust as he preferred to call it, who insisted to exhibitors that only their films could be shown. The Biograph Film Company was one that joined and paid Edison for the right to make films. The trust enforced its will by employing thugs or hired goons to destroy the camera equipment of companies not belonging to the trust. These smaller companies couldn't afford to pay Edison, and so they decided, many of them, to make the 3,000-mile rail journey from New York to Southern California. In California, they were beyond the reach of Edison's thugs. And when they came here, they realised the sun shone 300 days of the year. Land was cheap to rent, and there was enough space to stretch out and experiment. They sent word back to Fort Lee. We have discovered filmmaking heaven, and it's called Los Angeles.
In this freer environment, many directors became directors for the very first time. Alan Dwan was one of them.
They got me a little megaphone, and then they carefully taught me what to say. First, you say camera, and the camera starts to turn. Then you say action, and when we get through acting, you say cut. Now you learn that. Camera, action, cut. So I studied all day and learned it. And the director was away on a binge. He was an alcoholic, and they were waiting for him to come back and put them to work. So I wired the company in Chicago and said, "You have no director. I suggest you disband the company." And they wired back, "You direct." So I told the company, I got them together, and I said, "Now, either I'm a director or you're